Professor, clear something up for me. My esteemed colleague, Senator Feinstein, talked about how you'll vote and not vote. You don't know how you're going to vote yet, do you?
I certainly do not. In every case that comes before me, I carefully consider the law and the arguments of the parties and decide cases according to the law.
Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm taking you inside the Judiciary Committee, where Senator Kennedy really puts Professor Neomi Rao in the hot seat. This isn't just courtroom drama. We're talking about real questions on race, law, and the Constitution that every law student should see. So, picture this. Kennedy starts by asking Rao how she decides cases. She says honestly she won't know until she sees the facts and law in front of her. No shortcuts, no preconceived answers. Then Kennedy pivots. He brings up Rao's family, how her parents immigrated from India, and asks if she's ever faced racial discrimination.
Your parents immigrated here from India, is that right, Professor?
That's correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been a victim of racial discrimination?
Yes, Senator, I think there are times where I believe I've been treated differently on the basis of my race. Mm-hmm. It's not a great feeling.
Did it happen when you were younger, or has it happened when you were an adult?
You know, it's hard to say. It certainly happened when I was younger. I think we lived in a different time. But my parents also faced different forms of discrimination, in the workplace. And, I remember them telling me, they went to go eat at a restaurant, once when they were on a road trip, and they were told, this was in the early 70s, they were told,
Sure.
You can't eat in the dining room, but we'll put a table for you here out in the hallway. So those are things that are part of the stories I grew up with, but I was also encouraged to focus on the positive, right? All the great things in this country and all the opportunities for advancement and all the good people who who helped my parents along the way. So that was really what I was taught to focus on.
Do you think our society has gotten better in terms of appreciating ethnic diversity?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not hate, just lack of understanding. Kennedy asks, can someone be racially insensitive without being racist?
Do you think I'm just curious, do you think it's possible to be racially insensitive without being a racist? I'm not trying to trick you, I'm just want to know your thoughts.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people lack exposure to different groups, so there's sometimes a lack of understanding.
Okay.
And then, boom, Kennedy dives into judicial philosophy, originalism versus textualism.
Can you tell me the difference between an originalist and a textualist?
Well, Senator, I think originalists look at the text of the Constitution, of course, and then look to see what the original public meaning of those words were at the time the provision of the Constitution was enacted.
Okay, and by public meaning, you mean, what do you mean? Do you mean the drafters or the average citizen at that time in our country?
Well, I think it's usually meant to be a reasonable observer, who was sort of paying attention and involved in thinking about these issues. So kind of a reasonable, objective observer at the time.
At that time, let's say in the late 1700s?
Yes, at that time.
As opposed.
The toughest moment, Kennedy asks if equal protection in the 14th Amendment meant integrated schools in the 1800s.
If an originalist interprets the Constitution based on the public meaning, as you put it, or the meaning to the average person at the time the Constitution was adopted. Do you think the average person at that time, when the Constitution was adopted, believed in, desegregated schools?
Well, Senator, it's not necessarily what they intended, the words would have meant. It's what those words could fairly be taken to mean. So in the context of the 14th Amendment, the drafters of that used the very broad language of equal protection of the laws, which, regardless of what their intentions were, they use this very sweeping language.
This is where law, history, and modern values collide. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.